The Battle of Waterloo, fought on June 18, 1815, stands as one of the most significant military engagements in European history. This battle marked the end of the Napoleonic Wars and the final defeat of Napoleon Bonaparte, one of history's greatest military commanders. Set against the rolling plains of Belgium, the confrontation was not merely a clash of armies, but a decisive moment that reshaped the future of Europe. In the early 19th century, Europe was a continent in turmoil. The French Revolution had unleashed a wave of political and social upheaval, leading to the rise of Napoleon Bonaparte, who crowned himself Emperor of France in 1804. Napoleon's ambition and military genius allowed him to dominate Europe, creating a vast empire through a series of relentless wars known as the Napoleonic Wars. By 1814, however, Napoleon's fortunes had waned. After a disastrous invasion of Russia and subsequent defeats, the Allied forces of Britain, Prussia, Russia, and Austria invaded France, forcing Napoleon to abdicate. He was exiled to the island of Elba, and the Bourbon monarchy was restored under Louis XVIII. However, Napoleon's return to France in March 1815, known as the 100 Days, set the stage for one final confrontation. Upon his return, Napoleon rapidly rebuilt his army, knowing that the major European powers would not tolerate his resurgence. The Seventh Coalition, comprising the United Kingdom, Prussia, the Netherlands, and other German states, quickly formed to oppose him. The coalition armies converged in Belgium, under the command of the Duke of Wellington, a seasoned British general, and the Prussian field Marshal Gebhard Leberecht von Blücher. Napoleon's strategy was to divide and conquer. He aimed to defeat the coalition forces separately before they could unite against him. The initial phase of his plan involved a rapid advance into Belgium to engage the Allies' forces, aiming to strike before the Prussians and British could consolidate their positions. The Battle of Waterloo commenced on the morning of June 18, 1815, near the village of Waterloo, south of Brussels. Napoleon faced Wellington's forces, positioned along a ridge. Wellington had selected the battlefield carefully, utilizing the terrain to his advantage. His forces were spread out in a defensive line, with the right flank anchored at the farmhouse of Hougoumont and the left near the village of Pays-Platé. Napoleon's initial plan involved a diversionary attack on Hougoumont, hoping to draw Wellington's reserves and weaken his center. However, the attack on Hougoumont escalated into a fierce battle, consuming French resources without achieving its intended purpose. The chateau and its surrounding woods became a scene of intense fighting, with British and Allied troops holding their ground against relentless French assaults. Meanwhile, Napoleon launched a major attack on the center of Wellington's line, targeting the farm of La Haye-Sainte. The French artillery, considered the best in Europe, unleashed a devastating barrage, but Wellington's forces, sheltered behind ridges and earthworks, absorbed the initial shock. A critical moment arrived in the early afternoon when the first elements of the Prussian army, under Blücher, began to arrive on the battlefield. Napoleon had expected to defeat Wellington before the Prussians could intervene, but the arrival of these fresh troops threatened to turn the tide against him. The Prussian advance initially targeted the French right flank at the village of Plancenoit, forcing Napoleon to divert troops from his main assault to deal with this new threat. The fighting around Plancenoit was brutal. The village changed hands multiple times as both sides committed reinforcements. The Prussians, driven by the desire to avenge earlier defeats and to ensure Napoleon's final downfall, fought with great determination. The French, recognizing the strategic importance of holding the village, resisted fiercely. However, the numerical superiority of the Allies began to tell, and the Prussians gradually pushed the French back. In a desperate attempt to break Wellington's line, Napoleon ordered a massive cavalry charge led by Marshal Ney, known as the bravest of the brave. Ney, misjudging the situation, believed that Wellington's troops were retreating and led thousands of French cavalrymen up the ridge towards the British lines. However, Wellington's infantry formed squares, a defensive formation highly effective against cavalry. The French cavalry repeatedly charged these squares, but were unable to break them. This phase of the battle highlighted the resilience and discipline of Wellington's troops, who stood firm under immense pressure. The French cavalry charge, while demonstrating extraordinary bravery, failed to achieve its objective and resulted in significant casualties. As the afternoon wore on, Napoleon committed his Imperial Guard, the elite of his army, to a final decisive assault. The sight of the Guard advancing was intended to break the morale of the Allied forces, who had been fighting all day. However, the British and Allied troops, many of whom were veterans of previous battles against Napoleon, held their ground. In a pivotal moment, the British Guardsmen, under the command of General Sir Frederick Adam, repelled the assault with disciplined volleys of musket fire. The failure of the Imperial Guard's attack marked the turning point of the battle. As the Guard retreated, cries of "La Garde recule," "the Guard is retreating," spread panic through the French lines. Wellington, sensing victory, ordered a general advance. The Prussians, now fully engaged, intensified their assault on the French right flank. Under the combined pressure of the British and Prussian forces, the French army began to disintegrate. By the evening of June 18, 1815, the Battle of Waterloo was over. Napoleon's army was decisively defeated, suffering heavy casualties, with many soldiers captured or killed. Napoleon himself fled the battlefield and eventually surrendered to the British. He was exiled to the remote island of Saint Helena, where he lived out the rest of his life, dying in 1821. The Battle of Waterloo had profound consequences. It ended over 2 decades of conflict in Europe and marked the end of the Napoleonic era. The defeat of Napoleon led to the restoration of the Bourbon monarchy in France and ushered in a period of relative peace in Europe, known as the Congress of Vienna, which sought to balance power among European nations and prevent future large-scale conflicts. Waterloo also had a lasting impact on military strategy and tactics. It underscored the importance of logistics, communication, and coordination in modern warfare. The battle demonstrated the effectiveness of defensive positions and the need for combined arms operations, where infantry, cavalry, and artillery must work in concert to achieve success. In conclusion, the Battle of Waterloo was a watershed moment in European history, a climactic clash that brought an end to the Napoleonic Wars and reshaped the continent's political landscape. It showcased the bravery and resilience of soldiers on all sides and left an indelible mark on the course of history.